Jose, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
Great.
Thank you very much for being here and making yourself available to me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Are you ready to talk to me about what's going on? Because I think I have some questions. I think I know of the two movies that you made, The Moon Rising and UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied. Are those what would be your biggest accomplishments to date?
Well, UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied is one, and Moon Rising, of course, you know. And I have others that I'm making, you know, but currently those are my two biggest movies that are being well received.
And the reason probably why we're going to probably have our friendship expand is probably because of Moon Rising directly, right?
Yeah, we're going to work together.
Yeah, can you tell me from, you know, can you tell me about the movie from your point of view? What's important about the movie to you so that I can get a feeling for your point of view on it?
Well, what I like about the film was meeting up with Kerry Martinek. He's out of Canada. And what was really cool about him is he is one of the most in-depth historians of the NASA controversy. So he's brought out a lot of information that it would have taken me years to find. And I was blessed to have him come on the show, come on into the film. And a lot of the stuff that you see on that, aside from the Clementine mission and the full-color photography that I discovered, and a lot of the NASA Apollo photo tampering. Aside from all that, Kerry brought out a lot of information, man, like the Brookings report, which NASA hired the Brookings Institute to come out with a report in a journal as to how the world public and the American public would react if they were told that there was an alien presence among us. And it was not favorable to release that information because it would totally devastate not only the scientific community's findings and proving them wrong on a lot of theories, but also the religious and political and geopolitical aspects. So there's been a lot of information that Kerry brought out in the film Moon Rising. And what I'm aspiring now that I have you, Francis, you know, and you don't mind if I say this, but I'm glad that you're coming on board with me on the re-edit of Moon Rising because there were some vital things that need to be presented and answered, and only you can do it, and I'm glad you're going to do it with me on this film. So these are the blessings that I've had making these films, is that I've had the right people, you know, coming on board, and I appreciate you coming on board with me on the remake.
Right, and you know, in return, in karma, whatever it may be, serendipity is that you are a blessing to me as well, because I all of a sudden have this deep pool of pre-existing research, new research happening. Because where is an observer without something to observe, right?
Exactly, that's true.
So now listen, while we were waiting for you, I probably, you know, I tried to describe to the listeners what I knew about what you had done previously, because you and I do not have a history at all, and this is going to be like most of the things I've gotten involved with, to be honest with you, is it's right off at this brand new start of a relationship, and then it's a learning process, and then through the shows and whatever I do and the telescopes, we're all learning together. So I understand why we want to see the moon. Now, let me try to separate things. There are images that you created using a palette of colors that you adapted to moon images. But now there's also some new color images that Kerry Martinek has produced, right? So we have two different sets of images, correct?
No. What happened was I wanted to do a movie poster for my film Moon Rising. I had made a poster that was black and white, and it just didn't look right. You know, I needed a full-color poster. So what I did is I got two of the neatest-looking craters on the moon, and they're the twin craters. I think they're on the front side of the moon, lower front side. And I said, oh, you know what, looks nice, but I've got to colorize this, man. I've got to put it in color. So that's what I did is I airbrushed, you know, using earth palettes as earth tones to fill in the gray areas, because everything's grayscale. All right, so this photograph that was in black and white, I got all the lighter areas that on Earth were represented by this particular color, and I airbrushed the lighter areas that way. And I just kept doing it until I got a full-fledged earth tone version of what the moon's surface might look like if it was in color. And that's the poster that I used originally. But then I found when I was looking to do a special effect replica of the moon using a 3D program, a CGI program called Cinema 4D, I contacted one of my old special effects friends here in Hollywood, and I said, hey guys, when you guys do a space fly-in, you know, a space flight thing, and you got planet Jupiter and Saturn and Earth and all that, where do you get these 3D models that I can use? Because I want a replica of the moon. I have a scene where we're flying from Earth to the moon, and we want to have this particular shot. So what happened was he gave me a website called Map a Planet. All the studios use this. I'm sending it to you right now. I'll go in there and get a realistic Earth, a realistic moon, and what they've done is they've taken the surface of all these planets and mapped it out flat, okay? They made a map of it, a flat map of it, and then what the studio people do is they'll go up there and they'll download the skins, and then they'll wrap them around a sphere, and voila, there's planet Earth. Full-fledged, realistic, you know, that kind of thing. So I went to the moon section, and if you go to Map a Planet, and your listeners can go to mapaplanet.com, you go there, and click on the moon object. It's going to take you to another page, and that page you're going to see 5 different variations of what you can use. Okay? In the middle, smack dab in the middle, is the natural color of the moon. And when you click there, it takes you to the flat skin of the moon's surface, and on the left there are controls where you can start exploring the moon yourself in its full natural color. And that's where this all started. And so towards the end of Moon Rising, because I just discovered this right before I was going to release the film in March, and you know, if I had found this footage in full color before, I wouldn't have even put in my airbrushing, because I explained that at the top of the movie. I said, well, you know, I wanted a full color poster, and I airbrushed it, but see, I had already produced that segment before I discovered the color footage that exists. So towards the end, I start showing the color footage, and then people start getting confused. They said, well, the last part of the movie, it's full color airbrushing done by Escamilla. So that's why I'm re-editing the beginning of Moon Rising. So that's how that came about.
Well, I love how that's described too, because that makes perfect sense. How that, you know, and again, you might not have saw it as a blessing at the time because you were hoping to have, you know, because you were ready to release, and all of a sudden, new information gets put into the mix. And I would hope that anyone like yourself who gets new information, you know, follows through on it. And in this case, you're going to make the re-edit.
Yes.
Now, I must say that I'm a little bit curious because I honestly, you know, I can see how I could be helped, but I have no idea how I'm going to help. What do you see me being able to do for you? Would it be us using our telescopes now to go back to the moon and try to get images I mean, give me an idea what you're going to use as an astronomer like me for to help you reach your goals.
Well, in the aspects of Moon Rising, I'm going to have you come in at the top of the movie because I'm going to start the full color of the moon presentation at the beginning of the film, and I'm adding a segment into why the moon looks gray from Earth. And as an astronomer, you know that type of verbiage and dialogue. You know, you work how the atmosphere breaks down, you know, what we see, and things like that. So I'd like for you to come in on possibility of the scientific aspects of why the moon looks gray from Earth. All right, and then I want to ask you to do a favor. I need you to possibly check out certain portions. I don't know how far you can zoom into the moon from your with your observatory, but there are certain segments of the moon's surface, especially the front side. If you could get in there and get a close-up view, there's something that's kind of perturbed me since I started making Moon Rising back in 2008 about this certain section, and I forget the name of the doggone crater, man. It starts with I think it starts with a K, maybe. I don't know. It's not.
Well, don't let that go because there's time to, you know, there's always time to get that word that we can't think about. So.
Yeah,
I would. That sounds great to me. That sounds like something I can do. And of course, you know, I'm going to do my research and do the best I can. And then and be able to do that for you and make myself available. And on top of that, we have, I don't know what your timeline is, of course, but as we get to know more about that and more about each other, I'm going to, every time I get an opportunity, go out there and shoot, the best series of moon images we can. Like I said before, too, we can do a live moon broadcast, too, and even you can come on and we can have, we can have a way to interact while the moon's right there in front of us both, and then you get to see, what's possible as well.
Yeah, well, I'm doing some stuff on the Battle of Los Angeles. I'm going to be tied up all the month of February, so I probably won't start getting into the re-edit of Moon Rising until around the first part of March.
That's going to be perfect for me because I've got my hands full. You already know that we're going to try to do our first light event at the end of February. I know you're busy, and no worries. There'll be more things to do. We do have that transit of Venus coming up June 5th and 6th, which is going to be a big event.
Awesome.
And that might be something, too, if you're planning to do the re-edit, there's going to be a lot of interest in what's going on out in space. It's a great year and a great time of life to be interested in astronomy. I do agree. And I'm excited to see the re-edit because I'll tell you what, I haven't examined the color images that you're talking about from Carrie Martinek. I've actually spent so much time just reviewing Moon Rising and what I could about you so that I, had a feel of what you're thinking and what you'd put together, that I need to go now and do that. You're giving me research to do. I love to have research to do, especially like this. Someone, to go, because I know there's so much great information that, individually it's hard for all of us to reach without somebody giving us a reason or having a cause. Hopefully it's a good cause to go and do some of these things. Because, again, I don't know. We've just met, so you do feel like a very honest guy to me, and I'm going to, put forth the best effort like I always try to do. And then listen, if you have a critique of me, please feel free, because if anybody knows anything about me, I sometimes ask questions because I really, I don't take anything at face value exactly. I have to ask that question that satisfies my need to know that, that the person I'm having a relationship with is treating me on the up and up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you what it is up front, man. I don't pull any punches, and I wouldn't expect you to either. So I think we're going to have a great working relationship.
Yeah. And I'm always available, so you're going to find out it's going to be great. I'm always available, so don't ever think that I'm going to disappear, because one of the most important things I like to think about myself and the internet is that I'm more available than most anybody else. And
I'll tell you what, you're not only working on Moon Rising with me, but you're also working on UFOs from Outer Space, which is the third installment of the series.
Right.
So, and that one is all totally about outer space and astronomy. I mean, it's you. And so I definitely want to have you in that one. And I was going to try to release that at the latter part of this year. It's just not going to happen, man.
Yeah, I know how that goes. I've literally had some books that are just waiting for me to cross T's and dot I's. I mean, I just have content sitting there. It's hard to get it all worked out, and especially in your case, I'm sure, and it's starting to get in my case, the more you involve yourself in the speaking and the public, trying to inform more people and get more input from people, the less you have to really get some of the finer endpoints put together. Listen, I want to talk about the rods also, because I personally had an interest in them before I even was introduced to you, the UFO, the greatest story ever denied. Wow. Now, I know that some people will say that maybe it's not old news. Do you consider it to be old news?
No. Rod's phenomenon is currently still happening, and it's not an insect, contrary to popular belief and contrary to what a lot of the debunkers and skeptics out there are saying. And no matter what you saw on that TV show Monster Quest, they deliberately deceived their viewers. They lied. But no, they're not insects. These are something else. And I'll discuss that in a little bit. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. It's not a dead issue at all.
So listen, what I was talking about, again, while we were waiting for you to come on, I was talking about what I had been exposed to as far as the information about the rods. And it's very easy for someone just to dismiss things. But I must say that when I was researching the subject more, I was quite intrigued that the closer you got to the objects, the more defined they actually became, which sometimes when you when you get very close to some objects, unknown or otherwise, they now the rods do pixelate when you get them very close, but these were objects, anomalies or not, in the images that would actually get more defined the closer you got as they were being brought out. And when I was first introduced, it had a lot in my mind to do with that base jumping sinkhole. And is that where, in your movie, a lot of that, those views came from as well? So like when I was being introduced to it, were you breaking the news, or were you getting introduced to it like me?
No, I broke the news back in 1994.
See, that's before me, and that's...
The cave footage came about in 1996. I was watching a TV show called Real TV. Do you remember that show?
Yes, sir. I loved it.
All right. Well, I was watching one afternoon. It was a Friday. They said, coming Monday. And it shows these base jumpers. Daredevils jump into this canyon, what have you. And I looked at it, and then I saw a rod fly by and go, I'm going to contact Real TV. All right. And that's what I first learned about it, was 96. Now, the cave of the Swallows, I had learned about back in the early 80s, about that, or late 80s, I believe it was, because I have a lot of stunt friends here in L.A. As a matter of fact, the house I'm living in is from a stunt friend of mine. His name is Tom Morga, veteran stunt guy. And it turns out that at this cave, there was a jump, the first time a guy jumped into the cave from a helicopter, and there was a base jumper guy, and he was a stunt guy, and he jumps in, and he had a helmet camera. And this was before the Real TV story broke the thing about Cave of the Swallows. But I remember seeing the cave, and B.J. Worth was his name. And it turns out that he filmed a rod that came right at him, coming at him, as he was falling into the cave, came straight at him and past his head. And he thought it was a swallow, because, there they have millions of swallows. That's called the Cave of the Swallows. But when you see the footage of him going down and that rod coming at him, it wasn't a swallow. It was a freaking rod. And it was about a 3-footer. So I contacted BJ, and I contacted Real TV and got the first footage. It's owned by a guy named Mark Lickley. He's out of San Francisco area. And he and his crew had licensed the footage to Real TV. And it turns out he had more footage, because they spent 3 days jumping into the cave using high-def cams. At the time it was the Sony VX 1000. And they had an enormous amount of footage, not only from there, but also from the fjords in Norway. And they have rod footage from there too. And it's cold out there, So I talked to him, and he was one of the main guys that got into the rods phenomenon research with me. He provided with a lot of that great footage. So that's where that footage came from. And it was an amazing cave. I went there 5 times with different television networks, including all the 3 Japanese networks. Fox News went there with me. And it was just an amazing experience going to that cave.
Listen, I know what I wanted to ask you, and I know I'm bouncing back and forth. You gave me 2 great movies, so I don't know which one is to talk about most, because both movies intrigue me a lot, and I'm going to admit that. But let's go back to Moon Rising, because the color images that you were talking about, what do you think the color images are telling us?
Full color moon photography?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, anybody can look at it by going to Map of Planet. You can download them yourself. I happen to download 840, maybe 900. Full-res, high-definition photos of the moon in full color taken by the Clementine mission in 1994. And after Moon Rising came out, when you go to Map of Planet now and you try to download, for example, Aristarchus, it is all washed out. It is bad color. They've tampered with it, so it doesn't look right. And the reason they've done so is because in full color photography of the moon, you can see details. You have depth of field of what's on the moon, whereas in black and white you don't. And this is some very incredible things that exist on the moon. I mean, you can see structures. You can see what appear to be dome-shaped glass domes up there with things inside, like buildings and vegetation, all sorts of weirdness.
So you're when I go and look at them, I'm going to have an opportunity to see these things because I know that, because I'm going to be able to go see the pictures, and I'm going to have the opportunity to interpret that. But if I interpret that, and I know we were talking a little bit, touched on it on Wednesday, if I interpret that it is actually real, then I must tell myself that they either can't find their way to Earth, or they don't want to come to Earth, or we're keeping them from Earth. What would be your opinion on, that scenario? Because, if I go there and I see it, and I know that if I see something, then my brain has to, analyze it and tell me that I'm going to change my belief patterns or something that I would more readily believe than this new set scenario. And I know it's entirely possible, and I have an idea what you're talking about. I have to take the whole scenario to the next step and say to myself, that how is that possible without disclosure? In the sense of we are so far along, with people like me and people like you who are doing so much work, and nobody's paying us, telling us what to do, or stopping us from using our free will and our research. What are keeping what you believe to be, there must be inhabitants of those buildings away from us here on Earth?
Well, I think they are transporting, or coming. I think they are transversing back and forth from the moon to Earth and so forth. Because lately there's been a lot of traffic going to the moon. We had China, we had Japan, we have India, and Korea wants to go there now, and Iran, and they're all planning to go to the moon. I think what's happening is the reason the color photography has been kept from us by NASA. I mean, they should have shown us the full color photographs that the Hubble telescope took. Instead, they show us 3 photographs in black and white.
Right. That's another point there with the Hubble. How they said the moon was too bright for the Hubble to take a picture of, and then you found pictures.
Yeah, well, there are 3 or 4 photos of there. Just type in on Google. Just type in Hubble moon photos, and there's only 3.
Yeah, that's an impossibility, of course, right?
Yeah, and doggone well. I mean, there's also some animations that I downloaded from the NASA website where they superimposed Aristarchus. And by the way, for those that don't know, Aristarchus is the crater that looks like a nuclear reactor. They're calling it it glows a real beautiful blue or violet blue. And it's the only area on the front side of the moon that has this weird-looking crater. And when you see the Hubble photography of it, it's black and white. And here you have the Clementine mission photography of it in full color. So why would they hide that? Because, and you can imagine the Hubble telescope can go right in on the moon, man. If they wanted to show you the Apollo 11 base capsule, what have you, they could zoom in with the Hubble telescope, but they ain't going to do that. Why? Because it's possibly not there. Otherwise, why lie to us? Why keep us in the dark, Show us the full color photography from the Hubble. Can you imagine how breathtaking that would be? My gosh. And look at it this way, too, Francis. I've only downloaded like 345 photos, or maybe 900, like I said, and those are of 1.8 million digital photographs that were taken. 1.8 million full-color, high-resolution digital photos were taken of the moon in 1994. I've only downloaded not even a handful, man, of what's really there. So, doggone well that they've got the best lunar photography ever. NASA does. I'm a regular guy. There's nothing special about me.
That's right.
I have a talent for making movies and music and stuff, but that's about it. I mean, I look at everything with my eyes wide open, just like everyone else. I mean, when I first started doing UFO, The Greatest Story Denied, and I had to do a moon segment on that because that was part of the deal, I thought everything was black and white, man. I said, oh, that's the moon. Yeah, it's black and white, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea of the tampering that NASA had done to this photography until I did that movie. I also believed that we did go to the moon. I come to find out that there's something else going on about that. I mean, moon rising is not about whether we went to the moon or not. It's about what we found there and what was waiting for us when we did get there. So, just so people know what moon rising is about. And I'm so glad, like I said, you're going to work with me on this. And there's some things that you're going to love doing about the new moon rising, especially the vectors, man.
Hey, I have another question. You know who I asked to come on the show because he's been on my show before, and I'm wondering if you have a relationship with him. Do you have a relationship with, or had a relationship with Richard Hoagland? And because I had asked him if he wanted to join us, but I'll tell you my experience with Richard is we are friends, but after the latest asteroid flew by, YU-55, I haven't been able to get in touch with him. I don't know why. I know he's fine, but he just hasn't answered my calls. If Richard does ever answer my emails, Richard, please answer my emails. You know I'm sending them to you.
I've never bothered the guy. I just, hey, Richard's cool. I've heard him on Art Bell and Coast to Coast. And
no, listen, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Over the summer, we had a comet come by, Comet Olenin, and I was taking pictures of it with robotic telescopes in a network that I use, and they have telescopes around the globe. And on September 2nd, I snapped 5 images, and I used 3 different filters to snap the images. And what I got in the IR filter, or the I filter, which is a reversed infrared image, was this ice cream cone return. It looked like an ice cream cone, and it fit perfect around Richard's tetrahedron beliefs. So if anybody wants to call in, we probably have about another 30 minutes to go. Jose's been kind enough to join us. I think what I'm going to do, Jose, is I'm going to play like a minute station break. I'm going to do a little station break here, and then we'll see if any callers call in, and then when we get on the other side of the break, if there's no callers, I'll just keep talking, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, for the listeners, this is Collision Course. My name's Francis, and this is episode 28. I'm glad that you're here listening. Revolution Radio is freedomslips.com, and it is a listener-supported radio station.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers.
That's right. You've got to put your body upon the gears, upon the wheels, upon the levers. You're tired of sitting in your recliner wondering if the talk radio that you're listening to is actually presenting you with facts or propaganda to manipulate the masses. How do you do this? It's too expensive. I could never get on air. I'm not a DJ. Well, now all that is possible at TotalTruthRadio.com. That's right, for $50 a month. I repeat, just $50 a month. You can be the proud owner of your own radio station that is on air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, presenting facts that you research, things that you can prove, things that are close to your heart. Stand up against the machine. The more of us that stand up, the more of us that express our voice, the more of us that hear the truth, and that's the goal. We know that there are things going on in this world that are just killing the masses. They're dumbing down the populations. They're controlling the sheep, and you're tired of it, yet you just sit in your lazy chair and you listen and you listen and you listen, and you get more frustrated. The reason you're frustrated is because you're only listening. Start speaking. Get up out of that easy chair right now. TotalTruthRadio.com is selling affiliate radio stations for as little as $50 a month. That's right, $50 a month. And this just isn't the radio station. It is also the technical support that you need to get the station up and going. You have no computer skills. You don't need it. Go to TotalTruthRadio.com and look for full details. We started with 50 spots available. We are down to 44. These will go quickly. At $50 a month, a one-time fundraiser would pay your costs. So there's no reason to sit there looking at your bank book and saying, I can't do this. $50. You're on air when you want to be on air. You're saying what you want to say. You're able to do and present what you see as truth, what you see as being important. So get up out of that chair right now. Go to TotalTruthRadio.com, where you're going to find an awesome opportunity, and you're going to be able to stand against the machine that is manipulating us all.
And you've got to make it stop, and you've got to indicate
have Jose Escamilla. Jose, are you there?
Yes, I am. I've been over here chatting with some people, some great guys on the chat room. So
You know, we have a great group of people that join many of the shows and come every Friday night diligently. And it's a great source of information. I don't know if you have enjoyed the networking as much as I have, and not networking like here, sell this or sell that or do whatever, but I'm talking about real relationship building, sharing of knowledge. Now, when you're in the chat room, there are, just like we were talking about egos before, everyone's got one. Everybody's got a couple of elbows, everybody's got a little bit of ego, a little bit of opinion. So if you meet anybody in the chat room who won't leave you alone, just tell them to shut up.
Well, I've grown out of that. I used to have anger management problems.
Oh yeah, I did too. On my first show, episode 1 through 3, I was terrible.
I know, man. So it's like, all right, I better, behave myself and just roll with the punches, man. That's all you can do. But I'm old enough to just say, all right, whatever, go to the next one. But I'm gonna go in the chat room after we get done with the show and chat with some people. I like doing that.
Say, let me ask some roundabout questions to get your point of view.
Yeah.
Are you aware that there are a group of individuals and researchers who believe there is something awful out in our solar system just waiting to, what is your opinion of the Earth changes as you perceive them? With, let's say, weather conditions, let's say earthquakes, volcanoes. Are your senses alerted to that side of the story? Because I can tell you from experience that I've had to deal with a sense of fear from space for this, almost all of 2011. Have you gotten that from your circles at all?
Well, I'm up on everything, man. 2012, the Mayan calendars, the end of the world, the doomsday machines, and all that kind of stuff. I do feel there is a group up there, all right, and it's the Illuminati. Why beat around the bush? And this is a group that it's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, man. People don't realize that there is a group out there that wants to control the world. And the Rockefellers, Bilderbergers, the Rothschilds, the Bush family, all these bozos, man, they want to control us. They want.
I think it goes farther. There's one thing for me to want $1 million, but it's something else for me to get a job and start earning that $1 million. And I think the group, I'll even go as far as saying that they are using whatever resource. Is a group of concerted effort using large amounts of money to sway the masses. And if we allow them to do that, they're going to sway us right into a brick wall.
Absolutely. And, Obama recently signed an executive order, man, that allows the military to arrest civilians. They just put that into law.
Well, and I know this is still coming out, I started reporting on this a while ago. In the summer of 2012, Obama is scheduled to sign a UN, one of those treaties giving up our rights to, the Second Amendment right. Basically when the United States becomes their ability to police us, i.e. the UN, when our president gives the UN the ability to police us as if they were our governance, we thought we were kissing stuff goodbye before. That's a bad place to be. And I want people to realize that too. I haven't said it in a while, that this summer Obama's planning to sign a whole other bill that we haven't even hardly heard about, one that's going to put us in the treaty with the UN and the rest of the world that's going to take away some of our real rights. And it's going to be like one of these things. Oh, you've got just as much rights as you did before until something happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. And it's just a known fact that this is coming up. And they're trying to make it look biblical. They're trying to make it all look like as if, hey, this was written in the ancient times, and they're that crazy. They've got control over the harp instrument. They've got control over this Tesla technology, the weapons of mass destruction.
There you go. We're similar-minded there. Me and Tesla have a great relationship in my brain.
Yeah, well, we have those. They have these, that one tower, the Twin Towers. When you see that steel tower evaporate into dust, that was not done by, airline fuel. There's this one radio tower that just disintegrates, pulverizes, man. What causes steel to do that? some kind of weapon, man. It was an energy weapon that was used there.
Yeah, well, my view, and I don't get it, because that is one topic that I haven't, I have limited research on. My view of the event stops at Building 7. No reason for it to come down. Something's going on.
Oh, yeah.
I can't explain the rest, and I hate to because once you have an opinion about the rest, you're kind of one way or the other. I would still love to talk to the guys who set up the demolition in Building 7, and if I could find those guys, I'm sure they were down the street just a little while before. However they did it, because I've heard of multiple things. I've even heard as much as minute nuclear explosions caused it. So how am I to discern, from one range to the next, except I know from the placement of that building over there and the way it went down that that's just, you're just trying to fool the wrong guy, though I don't know if this guy can actually dive into, all the depth of what it takes for a government to pull that. But I've also did the research on the Gulf of Tonkin, also did the research on Pearl Harbor. Let's not forget, people, that yes, we're in a frightful, warring world, but there are some real reasonable explanations that are ulterior to what we're taught in school. And like I was just telling my wife, we were talking about Tesla. I said, honey, when you were in school, who gave us electricity? Who gave us telegraph? Who gave us some of these things? And this is speaking about Tesla. And my wife spends limited time doing the research, so she's going to give me the answer that comes to her head the first. And the answer that came out of her was the ones I was expecting. Thomas Edison, Marconi, all this stuff that was taught to us, you and me as well, because she's even younger than I am by a few years, that we were learning something, and this is how they manipulate us and our knowledge in a way that's just totally false. Now, granted, they'll say, oh, well, Tesla got this credit and Tesla got that credit. If you go back to the day and age, 1903, when you have Henry Ford, U.S. Steel, J.P. Morgan, who was actually funding Tesla, they were all in a separate deal outside of Tesla. And when J.P. Morgan went to Tesla and said, where do we put the meter, and Tesla told him what his plans were, that was the moment that that the corporate world started taking over our right to have things that were inalienable before then. Free energy. I believe Tesla would have given us free energy. I believe our whole energy system would be different if not for some type of shuffling off of information, shuffling off of responsibility, shuffling off of information, so that the government controls it now and they can do whatever they want to do with it. And I also feel that the government makes mistakes with this technology so bad that we could have some Earth effects. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that some of the things happening on Earth is man-made, and I don't think that we really have wrapped our brain around the ionosphere that Tesla was bringing to life, the electric ionosphere, the planet generator.
Well, another thing, too, is, we've had a lot of free energy devices, cars that work on water and this kind of thing, and they've been, the inventors have been either mysteriously killed or disappeared, or they've been, they were bought out. Japan was coming out with a car that worked entirely on water, but somebody approached them, either a major car manufacturer or somebody, approached the people that were coming out with the car. They already had production going. But this company went in there and just bought them out, So.
Yeah, and then at that point, again, that would be something, because Tesla was one of those individuals. Now, sometimes as people, we give people certain status ranking and we associate them with certain things. We give Edison, the proper placement in his brain. But I don't think there was any brain like Tesla's. And especially how far back we're talking about. We're talking about over 100 years ago. He was coming up with, ingenious things that, and I did some research about how he did it. He was a guy, and I'm kind of like this, not near it, but I like to visualize things. If I'm going to get into a competition or I'm going to race or I'm going to build something, I'll sit there and I'll visualize it. And I feel that when you visualize something well enough, you're better prepared to take on that task or compete. And what Tesla did is he totally created his inventions, a lot of them, in his head. and into, like they said it would literally be in his brain like a 3D object that then he would write the drawings for and create the object. So, this idea of without the human ingenuity, we would be nowhere. You take some of that ingenuity 100 and some years ago and then cover it up under a layer of bureaucracy, and then somehow the government comes back and uses it against us. I mean, one of the most, if there's anything that really makes me mad about the way I've been treated in this world, I think that would be a perfect example that, And then I get mad about we go back to ancient times, the Sumerians, they knew the planets were round. Where do we get from a round planet to people trying to sail their ships off the edge of the earth,
Yeah, exactly, man.
Totally unreasonable. And they're still teaching our children that. I haven't even asked my son who Tesla's about, and I don't, I probably should one day, but I bet you they're still teaching the same stuff. Thomas Edison, Marconi, all the same stuff that's basically not true.
Yeah, and one of the things that Tesla developed was current over the air. And this was in 1897. Right? That's when he was building that tower, I believe it was. Or it might have been later, but it was a current, sending current over the air. He wanted to give free electricity.
Yeah, and that's why J.P. Morgan went to him in his office and said, where do I put the meter? When he says, where do I put the meter, it means, where do I get paid? If you're going to progress your technology, Mr. Tesla, where do we put the meter? And Tesla couldn't give him the answer because Tesla's view was to basically now the ionosphere around the globe is already charged, but what his technology does and some of the HARP technology is they're able to send up a pulse of electricity that is circulating around the globe up in the highest reaches of our atmosphere. Okay, there's no resistance, you don't need no cables, you don't need anything. And what it does is they start it in one direction and they can direct it so it comes back over an amplifier. When it reaches the amplifier, it's amplified. They can create just, ginormous amounts of electricity. They can still do it today. I mean, the technology's there. But who's using it and what are they using it for? And this goes into also some of the, the military unmanned space vehicle, the X-37B. When I think about electrified ionosphere, I'm thinking that unmanned space vehicle is the one vehicle up there that can utilize some of that energy in a way that we might not care for.
Exactly.
The reason why we have Jose on here is he's going to do a re-edit. So we're actually going to get a whole new set of circumstances and a whole new viewpoint, not a new viewpoint, but added extra information, right, Jose?
I'm taking out the thing where I said it's a humanoid-looking thing, because a lot of people took it wrong. They took it that I was literally calling it a giant humanoid. So I'm going to reverbalize that. That's being changed. And then also I'm taking out the colorization stuff that I did, the airbrushing, and I'm going to come in right, cut to the chase, right to the actual color of the moon. Because a lot of people said at the end of the movie when I showed the color footage, they go, oh, that's just Escamilla's airbrushing, which is not it, So I'm taking the colorization. I want to have Francis on the show, and he's going to come in. We've got a couple of things that we're bringing out, and new evidence of the vector symbology where that really comes from. And it's going to be, it's a shocking, striking segment that we're going to have about the vectors, man, where it really originates. Do
you know what we're talking about? If Jose's talking about vectors, you know what the vector is? Okay. All the NASA logos? If you see any NASA logo, new or old, they have a V formation somewhere in them. Yet now it's a little bit more stylized. Their V now is a lot more stylized than it was. And I spoke about this with Jose at another time, that my understanding of what the V represents, if there was some backstory, if I was trying to interpret it, I always interpreted it with alien transportation somehow, whether it be biological or, actual alien crafts, because that vector symbol runs back, a long way. Vectors run all the way back to the Vimanas and the Sanskrit civilizations. And when you take a symbol, and it's important, you can break right off and go into symbology, but symbols are important, and that's one underlying tone that I've gotten also through a lot of my research, and I'm still not even fully alert to all the symbols that I actually are put in front of me, but if we did take time to research how symbols are affecting us, we'd probably be surprised. And the reason why I say we'd be surprised is because when we first created not language, but writing, we didn't write with letters. We wrote with symbology. And there is an innate instinct for humans still, even though we don't practice it, we don't do any of those things. I believe that there is some sort of signaling that we get subconsciously through being shown symbols, whether they be important to us or not.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. And how the ancients were able to get symbology that we're only realizing today, that we're seeing, in other symbology, like the NASA logo, for example, and stuff like that. How they had access to that type of information is an amazing thing that often needs to be checked out. You know
what I like, Jose? I like good research. I hate bad predictions. You know what I mean? So I'm a guy who doesn't like to make predictions. So I like you, and I like the research you're doing. So, what I was saying was like, I've interacted with people who are doing research, but they're doing research and they kind of already have a predetermined result. Now,
right.
Now it's reasonable for you to have an expectation of a result, but I like your result better. It's not telling me. It's not, I like research where we can come to a reasonable explanation of what we just observed, and then when you add in a little science and some actual images that we've taken ourselves and combine them with other research, and we come to a reasonable response. It doesn't have to mean that, we're going to come to a response, and that means all the listeners have to take action for or against something. All you're trying to do is unveil, bring to light the information that interests you the most and some of the discoveries you found through your research. So
yeah, and that's what I like to do, is I like to present what's there. I'm not going to perceive to say stuff like, I think it looks like a giant humanoid, even though I try to correct myself and say, well, it could be the light or something. I'm not going to talk like that anymore. I've decided after that, because, I've gotten a lot of input from different people, over the last 2 years since I released Moon Rising. And now I know how to present certain aspects. And I'm not going to go out on the limb and try to make any kind of a conclusion, So that's one of the things that I did in that one area there that put me in a gray basket area.
Hey, Jose, I finally got David Rathbone. And David, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You sound like you're calling from Mission Control, but what's going on, my friend?
Oh, not much. Having a good evening. Jose, nice to speak with you again. It's been quite a while, my friend.
Good, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just getting in on the conversation, I guess we're going back to your research of the moon. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. The take I get on the moon is, of course, it's not one of our natural bodies. What's there is for us to rediscover.
I agree.
Agreed.
If we're going to go any farther into this evolution that we got to do for getting to the moon, we've got to get past one certain thing, and that is the fact that it's already been colonized.
Okay, can I ask you something then?
Certainly.
David, and I just like to pose this question. If it's colonized, and now you might say, well, that they're interacting with us here on Earth, but let me go a little bit farther. If it's colonized, if I'm an alien and I'm colonized on the moon and I have that ability, what is keeping me from revealing myself to someone like Francis Walsh? I mean, why am I getting messed up being stopped from interacting with planet Earth if that's what I want to do? Or do you believe they don't want to interact with us, and so that makes it great for our governments to keep it away from us?
As far as interacting with us, they have been doing it for quite some time. How they're doing it is in a specific timeline, and they are not going to reveal themselves until it's time to. We were told. I mean, there's going. we're right on the verge of everything just coming together, and we all know this.
Well,
you're not going to get around it.
I'm going to say, Dave, what I hate, and I don't know if this is just whatever. I hate to throw blankets out there and just say, well, that's just the way it's going to be. I have to have more. That's why I ask the questions like, well, what's keeping the alien from, if they want to, what is keeping them? And when you say, well, they're just waiting, then what are they waiting for? Are they waiting to take us over? Are they actually playing a part in the government's role to stupefy and mystify us all?
We're not ready to be out there.
No, I know we're not ready to be out there, but they're ready to be here. Aren't they?
They've been here for millions of years.
But then they don't want the population to know that they're here.
They don't want to. How should I put this? They don't want their
interests.
Interests, exactly.
So their interests. So you think there's a connection somehow through alien corporate interests?
There are those types, yes.
So, so the Moon Rising movie, it was great for you because it brought to life some of the things that you expected already.
Correct.
And did you know that he was going to do a re-edit?
Yes. Well, I've been catching his Facebook things here and there, and other people have been giving me insider information. Jose, I hope that the re-edit's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see it myself.
Oh, I'm going to make sure that this release is going to have all the top stuff, man. And there's new things that I've found. Like I said, new stuff about the vector symbology. There's one thing that I'm going to hook up with Francis on this. I'm glad he's on board with me. There's this one photograph of the front side of the moon that's very perplexing. And because he's got the observatory, he's going to be able to focus in on that part of the moon. I hope you get real close stuff, and maybe you might have seen this with a different aspect.
Are you speaking of the very bright spot that we've been seeing here of late?
Not Aristarchus. Are you talking about Aristarchus, or is there something
I believe
else?
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, Aristarchus, I have some great photographs of Aristarchus. I'm talking about the front side of the moon. I can't remember the name of the marine, or what do you call it? Mare, whatever. It's a certain area. Don't worry, Francis, I'll get it to you. But if we can find any photograph that's a deviation of it, that does not at all looks like it, or a live shot of the moon that does not look like it, then we may have a huge mothership over the surface of the moon that was photographed by the Clementine mission in 1994. Because if it's not there now, and it was there then we have a real clear shot of one of the biggest UFOs ever captured on the surface of the moon.
Right, and I'm gonna, I'm excited to get out there now. We've been having cloudy skies now for almost 3 weeks here in Texas, which is which is good. Not for using telescopes, but I'm happy because we had an awfully hot summer. Right. But I was thinking also we're going to be going to these areas with this telescope, taking images, bringing them back, doing live shows. But also we do have some filters that are available to us, like the IR filter. So we're going to get a chance to look at the moon through the telescope in what we're used to, that gray scale. But some of the filters, like the IR one, it actually helps to give some of those items contrast without, forcing them on there. Which I'm really excited for the research. I can't wait. And I know that, we and Jose have just met recently, and I know it's all going to happen in time because that's the way good things happen. And I've already told you, Jose, I'm totally...
Not only the scientific community's findings and proving them wrong on a lot of theories, but also the religious and political and geopolitical aspects. So there's been a lot of information that Carrie brought out in the film Moon Rising. And what I'm aspiring now that I have you, Francis, and you don't mind if I say this, but I'm glad that you're coming on board with me on the re-edit of Moon Rising, because there were some vital things that need to be presented and answered, and only you can do it, and I'm glad you're going to do it with me on this film. So these are the blessings that I've had making these films, is that I've had the right people coming on board, and I appreciate you coming on board with me on the remake.
Right, and in return, in karma, whatever it may be, serendipity is that you are a blessing to me as well, because I all of a sudden have this deep pool of pre-existing research, new research happening. Because where is an observer without something to observe, right?
Exactly, that's true.
So now listen, while we were waiting for you, I tried to describe to the listeners what I knew about what you had done previously, because you and I do not have a history at all, and this is going to be like most of the things I've gotten involved with, to be honest with you, is it's right off at this brand new start of a relationship, and then it's a learning process, and then through the shows and whatever I do and the telescopes, we're all learning together. So I understand why we want to see the moon. Now, let me try to separate things. There are images that you created using a palette of colors that you adapted to moon images. But now there's also some new color images that Carrie Martinek has produced, right? So we have two different sets of images, correct?
No. What happened was I wanted to do a movie poster for my film Moon Rising. I had made a poster that was black and white, and it just didn't look right. I needed a full-color poster. So what I did is I got two of the neatest-looking craters on the moon, and they're the twin craters. I think they're on the front side of the moon, lower front side. And I said, oh, you know what, looks nice, but I've got to colorize this, man. I've got to put it in color. So that's what I did is I airbrushed, using earth palettes as earth tones to fill in the gray areas, because everything's grayscale. All right, so this photograph that was in black and white, I got all the lighter areas that on Earth were represented by this particular color, and I airbrushed the lighter areas that way. And I just kept doing it until I got a full-fledged earth tone version of what the moon's surface might look like if it was in color. And that's the poster that I used originally. But then I found when I was looking to do a special effect replica of the moon, using a 3D program, a CGI program called Cinema 4D, I contacted one of my old special effects friends here in Hollywood, and I said, hey guys, when you guys do a space fly-in, a space flight thing, and you got planet Jupiter and Saturn and Earth and all that, where do you get these 3D models that I can use? Because I want a replica of the moon. I have a scene where we're flying from Earth to the moon, and we want to have this particular shot. So,
a movie to you so that I can get a feeling for your point of view on it?
Well, what I like about the film was meeting up with Carrie Martinek. He's out of Canada. And what was really cool about him is he is one of the most in-depth historians of the NASA controversy. So he's brought out a lot of information that it would have taken me years to find. And I was blessed to have him come on the show, come on into the film. And a lot of the stuff that you see on that, aside from the Clementine mission and the full-color photography that I discovered, and a lot of the NASA Apollo photo tampering, aside from all that, Carrie brought out a lot of information, man, like the Brookings Report, which NASA hired the Brookings Institute to come out with a report in a journal as to how the world public and the American public would react if they were told that there was an alien presence among us. And it was not favorable to release that information because it would totally devastate
Jose, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
Great.
Thank you very much for being here and making yourself available to me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Are you ready to talk to me about what's going on? Because I think I have some questions. I think I know of the two movies that you made, The Moon Rising and UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied. Are those what would be your biggest accomplishments to date?
Well, UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied is one, and Moon Rising, of course, And I have others that I'm making, but currently those are my two biggest movies that are being well received.
And the reason probably why we're going to probably have our friendship expand is probably because of moon rising directly, right?
Yeah, we're going to work together.
Yeah, can you tell me from, can you tell me about the movie from your point of view? What's important about